My parents kicked me out when I was 19. Now my fiancé wants to invite them to our wedding. My father left us when I was just 4 years old, and from then on, I had no contact with him. My mother soon remarried, expanding our family with 2 more children from her union with my stepdad. While my stepdad never mistreated me, he always made it evident that I was merely Dale, a placeholder name, and not really his son. Despite this, my mother seemed content with her new family, relegating me to the sidelines, which led me to believe I was nothing more than a burden. This suspicion turned into harsh reality after my freshman year at college when my mother explicitly asked me not to return home. Devastated, I cut off all communication with her, my stepdad, and my half-brother thereafter. The only link I've maintained is with my half-sister, who insists on keeping in touch despite everything. Overcoming the rejection from my family was a grueling process, but it taught me independence and resilience. I believed I was destined for a solitary life until I met my fiancée 4 years ago. Her family, embodying the warmth of a typical suburban household, welcomed me with open arms, contrasting sharply with my own familial experiences. As my fiancé and I began planning our wedding, the guest list became a topic of discussion. I mentioned inviting friends from college and colleagues, but she suggested including my parents. Initially, I thought she was testing the waters to see if I harbored any desire to reconcile. I made it clear that my parents would not be on the guest list. She seemed to accept this at first, but revisited the topic repeatedly. Each time, I calmly reiterated the deep wounds they inflicted, how growing up feeling unloved, then having that sentiment confirmed at 19, severely impacted my mental health. I've come to understand that the issues lie with them, and it's up to them to reach out if they wish to mend our relationship. My connection with my sister confirms their content pretending I don't exist. It's painful, but it's a burden they've chosen for me, not one I can or should resolve. Despite explaining this, my fiancé has brought it up several more times, leaving me to navigate this delicate aspect of our wedding plans. The tipping point came last night while we were preparing the save the date cards. My fiancé asked again if I was sure about not inviting my parents. She even hinted at inviting them herself. That's when I lost my temper. I suggested we might as well discard the invitations because if she couldn't respect my past traumas, then perhaps we shouldn't marry at all. Upset, I retreated to our bedroom to cool off. When she followed to talk things over, I couldn't stay put. I grabbed my keys and left to clear my head with friends. I didn't return until 11 p.m. and opted to sleep on the couch. She went to work the next morning without a word, leaving our relationship in uncertain waters. I recognized that her insistence might stem from good intentions, but it felt utterly disrespectful. Still, I wonder if my reaction was too extreme. To those wondering, some might speculate that my parents and Dale are looking to make amends, but that's far from the truth. My sister and I meet every Thursday and discuss everything. If there was even a hint of reconciliation from my mom and Dale, she would have clued me in. But that's never been the case. They seem perfectly fine with ignoring my existence, and I've learned to accept that. This estrangement didn't just start suddenly. It's deeply rooted and unlikely to change. Update 1, August 7th, 2024. The response to my situation has been overwhelming, and I'm grateful for all the supportive messages. This evening, after finishing work from home, I anxiously awaited my fiancé's return at 5:30 p.m. Time ticked past 6 p.m., and she was still not home, which worried me. However, she arrived at 6:15 p.m., accompanied unexpectedly by my sister, who lives 45 minutes away. They both seemed anxious, and my sister was visibly upset. She burst into tears, apologizing profusely before revealing a significant development. It turns out, when she informed my mom and Dale about my engagement, it sparked a major disagreement among them. It turns out the family discord wasn't really about me at all. My 27-year-old half-brother is still living at home, unemployed and without direction. I pointed out the irony to my mother that they had kicked me out at 19, yet allowed him to stay well beyond an age when most are independent. According to my sister, my mother is ready to push him out too, but Dale is resistant. This disagreement has led to a separation, with my mother moving in with other relatives and refusing to return until my half-brother leaves. Strangely, my sister believes that an invitation to my wedding could mend these familial fractures, since my engagement seemingly triggered this latest rift. At that revelation, I couldn't contain my frustration. I clarified fiercely that my engagement had no role in their poor parenting or their dysfunctional relationship. I refused to shoulder their burdens. My sister's tears worsened, but this time I felt no urge to comfort her. During this tense moment, I turned to my fiancé for explanations. She hesitantly admitted that my sister had portrayed me as someone eager to reconcile, claiming I discussed family issues every Thursday and secretly desired to mend ties. Shocked, I confronted her about taking these claims at face value, especially since I had been clear about my no-contact stance with my family. I emphasized that I had always been transparent with her about my feelings. My fiancé has been my confidant in all major decisions, like when I switched jobs last year. We discussed it nightly, and her insights were invaluable. Realizing her mistake, she apologized and offered to show me the text exchanges with my sister to clear the air. However, my sister abruptly interjected, urging her not to reveal their conversations. Ignoring her, my fiancé insisted, explaining she needed to salvage our relationship. It became apparent that my sister had grossly misrepresented our discussions. She had painted a picture of me longing for reconciliation, even suggesting I was too embarrassed to admit it. This pattern of misinformation had influenced every conversation, with my fiancé receiving skewed interpretations from my sister, who claimed I wasn't being fully honest about my feelings. It was utterly false. The idea of reconciling with my family doesn't appeal to me in the slightest. In fact, I'd be more than content never to see them again. My disbelief deepened, realizing that my sister still interacted with them. This revelation compelled me to ask my half-sister to leave and to declare that our Thursday meetings were indefinitely suspended. Despite her protests and repeated apologies, I remained resolute, unable to move past the deception. I've decided to cut off contact with her for now, a necessary step to protect my feelings and relationships from further betrayal. The situation with my fiancé is equally troubling. She engaged with my sister behind my back, never once consulting me, allowing herself to be swayed by my sister's manipulations, which has deeply wounded me. I love her, but this breach of trust has left a significant rift between us. We've mutually agreed to seek couples therapy to see if we can salvage our relationship. I'm hopeful yet uncertain about the outcome. It feels like a 50-50 chance at best. She has a considerable amount of work to do to regain my trust. I know some might think I'm being overly harsh with my fiancé, especially considering the manipulation involved. However, we are both entangled in this mess, and I acknowledge that neither of us is entirely faultless. That's precisely why we opted for counseling together, to tackle these challenges as a united front and restore the trust that's been eroded. We're committed to resolving these issues, and I refuse to let external influences destroy a relationship with someone I deeply love. Update 2, August 15th, 2024. Since my sister's departure, a lot has unfolded. I expressed to my fiancé that while I love her, my trust is currently shaken, feeling as though she sided with my sister over me. As a result, I've spent the last few nights on the couch, not yet ready to share a bed. She's been tiptoeing around me, which neither of us enjoys, but I'm just not ready to forgive. After a night out with friends, I returned home and continued to sleep separately. We had a brief, harmless exchange where she invited me back to our bed, but I wasn't prepared to bridge that gap just yet. At around 3 a.m., I woke up needing to use the bathroom and noticed my fiancée sleeping on the floor beside the couch. Her presence, so close yet so respectful of my space, unexpectedly moved me, and I found myself shedding tears. It was a profound reminder that she still sought closeness, despite my distant behavior. This gesture significantly softened my feelings. Later that morning, I awoke again to find her preparing breakfast, a task usually reserved for me on Saturdays. We sat down together, maintaining a light, careful conversation. In that moment, I chose to open up about a childhood memory that had long influenced me. Dale used to prepare breakfast for everyone except me. By the time I woke, there would often be nothing left, and any remains would be cold in the fridge, eaten alone. Sharing how our Saturday brunches had become a cherished tradition, I admitted that I had never fully expressed its significance to her. She listened with tears in her eyes, and although she began to apologize again, I stopped her. I reassured her of my forgiveness and expressed a desire to continue with couples therapy, not just to mend, but to better communicate my familial challenges. Feeling a shift in our dynamics, I suggested we proceed with sending out the save the dates. As a lighthearted end to our conversation, I asked for a back massage, joking about the couch's unforgiving nature. It was a significant gesture given my usual discomfort with physical touch, which I had restricted even further since our falling out. Despite some opinions against it, I chose to forgive my fiancée. Her mistake was grave, yet her inexperience with family trauma like mine and her evident remorse convinced me of her sincerity. Regarding my sister, a surprising call from my mother through an unknown number suggested forgiveness, but it only deepened my resolve to maintain distance. I promptly blocked the number. This confrontation happened on Thursday evening. My sister attempted to visit on Sunday, but we weren't home. She left a note of apology, clarifying that involving our mother was not her intention. My fiancée has since distanced herself from my sister, leaving any further decisions regarding her to me. I assured my fiancée that she was my true family, so if she preferred my sister not to attend, then she wouldn't be there. It was a slight jab, but she handled it gracefully, confirming she didn't want her there. This will undoubtedly mean my side of the aisle looks sparse compared to hers at the wedding, but that's a small price for peace. Ultimately, it's the future with my fiancée that counts, and she's the family I choose to build my life around. Regarding my childhood breakfast, I know it might seem trivial to some. Why didn't I just wake up earlier? But interacting with Dale was never straightforward. Any attempt to join was met with passive-aggressive comments like, "Looks like he's ruined daddy kid time," accompanied by eye rolls and exasperated looks. I was clearly an unwelcome presence, and such dismissals are hard to shake off. I realize not everyone can relate to this type of strained relationship with a parent or step-parent, and for those who had a positive family experience, I'm genuinely happy for you. However, revisiting these painful memories is draining. I came here to share, seek advice, and perhaps find solace, not to entertain others with my past hurts. This update was intended as a gesture of gratitude to those who've offered their support, but now, I'm rethinking the wisdom of sharing so openly. It's likely this will be my last update on this matter. Now, on to the next story. Story 2. Husband planned a trip with his bros only, right after our baby was born. I begged him to stay, but he went anyway, creating a rift between us. I, 30F, recently gave birth to our daughter Olivia 2 months ago. Being a new mother is both wonderful and daunting. My husband Jake, 32M, was supportive during my pregnancy and promised to be by my side after Olivia's arrival, especially during these early, challenging months. Before Olivia's arrival, Jake and his buddies had been planning a week-long, bros-only trip to a mountain cabin for hiking, fishing, and bonding. When they were organizing it, I reminded Jake that Olivia would be just a few months old by then, and we'd still be navigating the newborn phase. He assured me that if it became too challenging, he'd cancel the trip to support me, and I trusted his promise. However, with Olivia here, I found motherhood more demanding than expected. The sleepless nights, breastfeeding challenges, and general adjustments have left me quite overwhelmed. While Jake has been supportive, his anticipation for the upcoming trip is palpable. Last week, I broached the subject of him possibly canceling, recalling his earlier commitment to stay if needed. His reaction was a mix of surprise and hurt. He expressed how much he had been looking forward to the escape and insisted on the importance of his own break. He suggested that his parents, who live nearby, could step in during his absence. I understand Jake's need for downtime and the value he places on this trip, but his timing feels off. I tried explaining that while his parents' assistance is valuable, it doesn't replace his presence. Jake countered that I was being unfair, emphasizing the effort put into planning the trip and the necessity of trusting him to ensure I'm supported in his absence. This has led to a standoff between us. Opinions among friends vary. Some advocate for his need to decompress and maintain that it's vital for him to have time away, especially with the stresses of new parenthood. Others side with me, feeling it's too soon for him to leave for a whole week, suggesting he should prioritize his time at home with Olivia and me. Additional info. The logic behind scheduling such a trip at this time baffles me, and I've repeatedly questioned whether it was ever a reasonable idea. For 9 months, I bore the physical burden of carrying our daughter, endured the intense pains of labor, and now I'm entrenched in the challenges of breastfeeding, a feat that brings its own brand of fatigue. Meanwhile, Jake planned his trip, seemingly without a second thought, and reneged on his promise to cancel if I felt overwhelmed. He still finds it unreasonable for me to request he not leave for an entire week during this demanding time. It's not that I don't value the support from his parents, but their presence for a week isn't the solution I need. What I truly require is Jake's presence, his active participation and support as we both navigate the early stages of parenthood. If he genuinely commits to being a devoted husband and father, he must realize that now is not the time for solo adventures. Being a parent often means setting aside personal desires for your family's needs. I'm not labeling Jake a bad person, but his decision to prioritize a recreational trip at this juncture seems like a significant oversight. I hope this instance is not a precedent of him putting his interests above our family's, but it's challenging not to harbor doubts when such decisions arise. Perhaps in the future, once breastfeeding is behind us, I might take a week to myself and see how he manages solo parenting. But presently, I need him to rise to the occasion and be the partner I believe he can be. Update 1, August 22nd, 2024. I want to express my gratitude for the overwhelming support and understanding that poured in from this community. Each response, filled with kind words and practical advice, has helped alleviate my sense of isolation in this struggle. Many suggested that I should also take a week off, allowing Jake to fully engage in caregiving for Olivia to ensure I get the rest I deserve. While I appreciate this idea, it isn't feasible for me right now, primarily because I'm breastfeeding, which makes extended separations from Olivia logistically complex. Moreover, I'm admittedly not yet comfortable with the idea of being away from my baby for long periods. I realize it's not healthy to feel so anxious about leaving Olivia even momentarily, but as a new mom, that anxiety is tough to overcome. I've been contemplating whether to show Jake this thread. While I'm concerned it might hurt his feelings, I feel it's crucial to have another in-depth discussion about our situation. I'm open to compromise. I'm considering proposing that he shorten his trip to just 3 nights instead of a full week. This way, he can still enjoy some downtime with his friends without being away for too long. I'll share more updates after we've had our conversation. Thank you again for all the support. It truly means a lot to me. Update 2, August 23rd, 2024. I want to provide another update following a very long and emotional discussion with Jake last night. I won't delve into all the specifics, but I'll highlight the most crucial aspects. After putting Olivia to bed, I was so overwhelmed that I went to bed early, feeling completely drained. Jake was already asleep, but my sudden burst of tears woke him. Concerned, he immediately asked what was wrong. Initially, I brushed it off as mere exhaustion, but I eventually opened up about my deep-seated anxieties regarding his upcoming trip and the prospect of managing everything alone with Olivia. During our conversation, I confronted a tough truth I had been hesitant to voice. Jake hasn't been as engaged as I anticipated, echoing one of my greatest fears upon learning we were going to be parents. To provide some context, Jake has a strained relationship with his own father, who was largely absent from his life after his parents divorced and his mother remarried during his adolescence. Jake has often shared his fears of repeating his father's mistakes, worried he might not live up to his own expectations as a dad. Initially, his openness about these fears made me believe they would inspire him to be a devoted father, a hope that has been somewhat challenged recently. I realize it's not healthy to feel so anxious about leaving Olivia even momentarily, but as a new mom, that anxiety is tough to overcome. I've been contemplating whether to show Jake this thread. While I'm concerned it might hurt his feelings, I feel it's crucial to have another in-depth discussion about our situation. I'm open to compromise. I'm considering proposing that he shorten his trip to just 3 nights instead of a full week. This way, he can still enjoy some downtime with his friends without being away for too long. I'll share more updates after we've had our conversation. Thank you again for all the support. It truly means a lot to me. Update 2, August 23rd, 2024. I want to provide another update following a very long and emotional discussion with Jake last night. I won't delve into all the specifics, but I'll highlight the most crucial aspects. After putting Olivia to bed, I was so overwhelmed that I went to bed early, feeling completely drained. Jake was already asleep, but my sudden burst of tears woke him. Concerned, he immediately asked what was wrong. Initially, I brushed it off as mere exhaustion, but I eventually opened up about my deep-seated anxieties regarding his upcoming trip and the prospect of managing everything alone with Olivia. During our conversation, I confronted a tough truth I had been hesitant to voice. Jake hasn't been as engaged as I anticipated, echoing one of my greatest fears upon learning we were going to be parents. To provide some context, Jake has a strained relationship with his own father, who was largely absent from his life after his parents divorced and his mother remarried during his adolescence. Jake has often shared his fears of repeating his father's mistakes, worried he might not live up to his own expectations as a dad. Initially, his openness about these fears made me believe they would inspire him to be a devoted father, a hope that has been somewhat challenged recently.